Hey, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time. So for those of you who heard the news, like I've been away for almost like 2 weeks, like probably more than 2 weeks, and I've been quite busy these days. And apparently, Dislyte decided to release a lot of new contents while I was away. So I'm kind of a bit late to the party here. So I bet you all already knew on a lot of the new contents, much more than me, from probably yourself, your own experience, or from other YouTubers. And I also never watched any other YouTubers, so not to spoil the fun in dealing with all of these new contents. So everything that you're gonna hear are coming from my own analysis, and hopefully you get something new out of it. So let's start with the Sentinel hunt in this video. So the Sentinel hunt comes with 3 bosses now, and you can challenge this together with your clubmates. So the tips that I want to give to you guys here is that you don't need to be good on all 3 of them, because you do have a limited challenge attempts here. So you do want to just maximize on the boss that you are really good at. So for example, if you have a lot of speed teams, a speed relic, a really fast relic, then you do want to challenge more on Probator. And if you do have a lot of poisons and debuffs, you do want to challenge on the Dark Star Lord. If you do have a lot of tanks and defensive and multi-hitter Esper, then you do want to challenge on a Counter Sonica. So you can work together with your clubmates. You don't need to be good at every single one of them. Like for example, if I'm good with Dark Star Lord and Probator, then I can just focus on 2 of them because I have 12 tickets here, while I can only challenge 6 for each one of them. So I can focus on 2 bosses while leaving the 3rd bosses for my clubmates to deal with. So that's the first tip that I can give you. The second one is that if you do it like that, you can talk with your clubmates on which bosses you do want to focus more on. Like for example, in this case for mine, we do focus more on Probator because he is the easiest boss among all these 3 bosses. So we just focus on him and get as high level on Probator as possible. But there's a limit to that. Like for example, if we do want to increase the level to level 5 on Probator, it's gonna require us a lot of effort in order to do that. And if we do give the same effort to the other bosses right now, which is currently at level 1 and level 2, we might be able to increase their level by 2 levels with the same effort that we do to increase the level for better from 4 to 5. So it all comes to your decision whether you want to increase the level of the other bosses to get a better reward here, or you can just keep going on to the better to get as high level as possible, which also translates into a better chance of a better reward from here. So all in all, it all depends on each class, on your strategy in dealing with all these bosses. So we're gonna start with the one that we already familiarize ourselves with, which is the Dark Star Lord. So I won't talk into much detail about how to deal with this boss. You can already see the explanation here. Lilith already do a great job in summarizing all the things that the boss are able to do in this text form here, and also they put all the necessary aspects that you are able to bring in dealing with this boss. So I'm just gonna give you tips and tricks on how to deal with him. So the first one is on the first team. Like you know that you need to stack as many debuffs as possible on the first team, and by doing that you can either have 2 ways: by putting a lot of poison espers all together so they can work together in putting a lot of poison stacks to the boss, or if you have fast enough relic, then you can just use 2 of them into putting like 12 stacks of debuffs on this boss, so not to overkill him with debuffs, and you can bring other espers to do another job, like probably healing to make you last longer, or probably bring a DPS. Like I keep thinking in theory, like if you are able to save a slot here, then you might be able to bring Louis, which is really good in dealing more damage the more debuffs the enemy has. So he is currently the best Esper in pairing with poison Espers, Louis. But that is in theory. So a lot of you might have heard that putting Meredith on the first team results in a very great result. But the thing is that for my case, she is much better to be used in the second team and the third team compared to the first team. If you are able to put enough poison stacks debuffs on the boss, you don't really need the extra speed coming from the Meredith herself. Unless you use Meredith and you can single-handedly put enough debuffs to the boss using a Resonance 6 EV. So you only need to have Meredith and EV on the first team, and you are able to deal DPS with the other Espers to this Darkstar Lord. So there are many ways to attempt for the first team, but the standard way in doing that is to just put Poison Espers and a healer and Biondina here, and that's it. And then for the second and the third team, there are some key components that you want to think about when building up your lineup. So the first thing is that the most necessary debuffs that you need to have in every one of your lineup is buff blocker, miss rate up, attack down, and probably a defense up. So if you have all those 4 things, then you can be sure that you will live for a very long time. Because by giving attack down and miss rate up, you are reducing the boss damage by a lot, and also the boss put more debuffs on you if he is able to deal a critical damage. So you don't want that to happen. So miss rate up alone is already enough in preventing him to deal a critical hit, but if you are still want to go even further, you can add a crit resist on your lineup, which currently only 2 Espers are able to do that, which is Laura and Ethan. So I haven't really tried Ethan in this lineup here, because I haven't really got much time into playing this game yet, and I haven't really built up my Ethan yet. So probably in the near future, I'm probably gonna test him out here, and I'm gonna tell you the result out of it. So that's the first set of debuffs that you need to think about. The second one is on how you are able to deal damage to him, which is gonna be attack up and then defense down. So you do need to think about how you're gonna give attack up to the boss. Like in this lineup here, because Gaius doesn't need critical rate up, so it's the best partner to be paired with Intisar, my Resonance 6 Intisar, which can only give attack up, also with Sally, who can only give attack ups, because we don't really need to use the critical rate up on this lineup here. So there is one way for you to build your lineup here, and the defense down can come from Intisar and also Gabriel here. So you do want to put those buffs and debuffs for your offensive options. And also there are 2 buffs that are quite optional, but you do need them in order to make the run more consistent, which is immunity and also cleanse. So because the boss will give you a miss rate up, so you do want to prevent him into putting that debuffs on you by using immunity or by cleansing the miss rate up. Of course, if you put immunity on yourself, that means that it is vulnerable to getting stolen by the boss on the second phase, but that will only happen if he deals critical hits on you. So as long as you prevent him from dealing critical hit on you, then you can be sure that your buffs won't be getting stolen by him. So those 2 are kind of optional, but necessary nonetheless. And also you need to have a Dispeller just if in case you fail to give buff blocker on the boss. So those 3 are immunity, cleanse, and buff steal. So those 3 are optional. If you can have all the previous buffs and debuffs that I mentioned, and you can already consistently applying them to the boss and your lineups, then these three are kind of optional. But if you cannot consistently apply all the previous buffs and debuffs that I mentioned, then these three are quite necessary. So the last buffs and debuffs that I want to talk about is the speed up and the speed down. So even though this doesn't really affect directly on your Esper capabilities, but it does affect the amount of moves that your Espers and the boss able to make. But the thing is that it can be also troublesome, because the faster you move, the more your buffs gonna be used up. So there is a situation where you move too fast compared to the boss, and you already use up your buff's duration before the boss even hit you. So it's kind of a waste, like applying buffs to your allies while you move twice, and when that buff is already gone, then the boss start to move. So it's better to be able to put debuffs on the boss, because the boss will only remove that debuffs by moving. So once you put the debuffs on the boss, you can be sure that it will stay there until he actually moves, or until his minion removes the debuffs for him. So all in all, those are the tips, the checklist that you need to fulfill in order to build your lineup. And the boss cannot be afflicted by AP manipulation, so don't bother reducing his AP. And the only way the only way for you to reduce his attack frequency is by applying speed down on him. So this is the last and most important tips that I can give to you, which is Sally and Alexa. If you have Sally and Alexa, build them, because they are very, very important in this Sentinel hunt, in this Dark Star Lord. Because the Dark Star Lord will give debuffs on you, which reduce the amount of healing you can receive from your healer, and also the amount of shield that you can receive from your healer. And at that point in time, if you have too much of that debuff stacking on your Esper, then you can no longer get healed except by using Sally and Alexa, because they are the only one who can still heal you while you receive 0 healing. So for example, let's say my Gabriel keeps getting hit by the Dark Star Lord, and she keeps getting the nasty debuffs that reduce her healing received. And because my Meredith is run on auto, so she will keep on trying to heal the Gabriel, which is like not gonna do anything to her. And if you decided to not heal her at all and try to heal the other Esper, then sooner or later my Gabriel gonna die. But if I use Sally here, then even though Gabriel is almost dying, she can still use her other allies' health in order to heal the Gabriel in here. And that way, you can use the other Esper's HP to heal Gabriel, even though she cannot receive any more healing. And then, while you give HP to Gabriel, you can now heal the other Espers, because the other Esper still doesn't have that debuffs that reduce the healing taken from their allies, from the boss. So you can still heal them, and the next time you use Sally's second skill to equalize everyone's HP, then you can use the HP that you already healed up on the other Espers again to heal your Gabriel. That is the trick in using Sally and Alexa in this case. And also Alexa, her return damage buff, which is this one, the Kiss of the Nightingale, do affect the boss. Like, he will receive his damage back to him if he hits someone who has that buffs. So all in all, it's quite an increase in DPS, but the things that you want to emphasize is their abilities to equalize everyone's HP. That way you can still heal them on 0 heal when you already stack a lot of the boss debuffs. And it only applicable if the boss hitting the same Esper over and over again. So it won't it won't affect you if he like spread his damage equally on every single one of your Esper. So it's quite situational, but when the situation happens that he keeps on hitting the same Esper over and over again, you can be sure that they can perform their job really well. So that's my tips and tricks for Dark Star Lord. So we're gonna go to the next one, which is Professor. We've seen him a lot in the Temporal Tower, but in this Sentinel hunt, he has a totally different skill set. And if you do have a lot of speed teams, speed Esper, then you do want to challenge him more, because he is, if as long as you are able to keep him on sleep, to keep putting sleep debuffs on him, then you don't need to worry that much on your defensive buffs, because he is like only in this content that you are able to put sleep, and the enemy will not wake up even though they keep receiving damage from your Espers. So if you are able to put sleep permanently on the boss, then buffs and debuffs such as miss rate up, attack down, defense up, barrier, immunity, you don't need all of them. So it's much easier to build your lineups because you just need to focus on your Esper that can inflict sleep on the boss to move as fast as possible, and also 80% accuracy in order to land the sleep debuffs more successfully. And the rest of your lineups can just fully dedicate themselves on dealing damage to the boss. So there are limited Espers that can inflict sleep on enemies, which is Celine, Parmy, Steward, and Abigail. But the thing is that with Abigail, if you do run this content on auto dispose, then Abigail won't be able to inflict sleep to the boss at the first turn, because she will prioritize on using her third skill and second skill. So if you do use Abigail, you do want to control her manually in order to inflict sleep on the boss, otherwise she won't put sleep debuffs on the boss, and the boss will definitely gonna move for the first couple of turns. So after you put up all of your sleep Espers, like they have a different specialty, like pros and cons. So for here, Celine doesn't deal damage at all to the boss, but the thing is that she is able to give speed up buffs to your allies, which increase their DPS capabilities. And for Parmy's case, she is able to give regeneration to your allies, so you don't really need to put any other healer in your in this lineup. Although if you are able to avoid getting hit at all from the boss, then you don't really need any healing at all. But still, if the boss manages to move once or twice, then she is enough to heal her allies by just using her regeneration buff. So the third one, Steward, he himself is a damage dealer. So while inflicting sleep to the boss, he himself can deal damage to the boss. But the thing is that if you build him full attack, then he won't be able to keep up the sleep on the boss at all times. But if you build him with more speed, then you sacrifice his damage in order to do that. So he is quite a bit tricky to build in this lineup. So those are the sleep Espers that you can use here. And also, if the boss moves and attacks you, and if he doesn't have a disease debuff on him, then he will do a lot of nasty things to you. But the thing is that if he doesn't move at all, so you don't really need to worry about him doesn't have any disease debuffs on him. And also the thing is that Esper that can deal disease on every single turn is only Joser. So you need to think about like a chance when the boss actually moves, or you fail to inflict sleep on the boss while your Esper who can inflict disease is currently on cooldown. So there are that kind of situations where even though you bring an Esper that can inflict disease on the boss, they won't be able to inflict disease at the right time while the boss is able to move. So disease is nice to have, but you do still want to focus on just dealing damage to the boss. The disease is kind of like a little bit secondary in this case, but you do want to have the disease as a backup just in case the boss is able to move and you still want to recover from that. So that's the thing. And the rest is that the thing, compared to the Dark Star-Lord, like Pobeta and Countess Sonica can be their AP can be manipulated, so you do want to keep pushing their AP back to reduce the turn that they are able to make. So that way you can preserve the sleep debuffs on the boss permanently, and also the thing is that the boss will move faster and faster the more turns he gets. So at one point, he will move so fast that you won't be able to keep up with your sleep, and he will obliterate your lineup. That's the time when your lineup will die. But before that happens, you need to just keep controlling him and keep reducing his AP, so you have a lot more time, a lot more chance in dealing damage to him. And so the only buffs and debuffs you need to think about is just attack up, defense down, steer, just a standard offensive buffs and debuffs that can increase your damage capabilities in dealing more damage to the boss, and also speed up. You can. And here's some tips here. Kara here is one of the Esper that can inflict disease on the boss. So if you do want to use Kara, because she puts a lot of poison debuffs on the boss, you can emphasize that poison debuffs by putting Luyi as a combo with her, because Luyi deals more damage the more debuffs the enemy has. So if you do have Kara here, you can be sure that your Luyi will deal a lot of damage, because the boss will have a ton of debuffs on him. And that only applicable when your Luyi is at Resonance 6. And then Koharu here is also a really good Esper, because she is able to give all the necessary buffs and debuffs that you need in order to deal with this boss, which is Disease here, and also Seer to increase your damage. And after that, she can also inflict attack down in case the boss able to attack you and move. And also she has a Kagura Dance, which increase the damage that your allies gonna deal to the boss, and also she can give recovery to herself. So all in all, she is a really good Esper in dealing with this Pobeta. So I hope you guys able to kill this boss without any problem. Like, this is the easiest boss among all the other Sentinel bosses. So that's my tips and tricks on dealing with this boss. So comes next to the Countess Sonica. So in Countess Sonica, she's probably the hardest to deal with, because there are not many people who emphasize on building their multi-hit Espers. Because previously in the other contents, we are kind of getting penalty or getting not rewarded, the opposite of rewarded. Like, we're getting punished. We are getting punished by hitting a lot of times in other content. So not many people are building a multi-hit Esper. But in this content, we are actually forced to only be able to deal damage to her by using a multi-hit Esper. So the way she works is that she has two phases, just like the Dark Star-Lord. In the first phase, only these Espers can deal damage to her. I've already tried using Intisar wearing Donar's Relic, which makes her a high defense Esper, but the thing is that the system doesn't recognize my Intisar as a high defense Esper, although her damage is still able to deal percentage HP damage to Countess Sonica, which makes her damage quite big, but they don't include her into a high defense Esper with just a high defense rally. So only these Espers are able to deal damage to her. So you do want to just choose one among these 4 Espers and just put it here as your damage dealer. And she cannot be hit like the other espers that are hitting her will deal like a very minor damage. So you just want to have espers that can control her AP. So just keep pushing her AP using Sender or Xiaoyin or any other AP pusher esper. And the only way you can heal your allies while dealing with this boss is by cleansing a debuff, which probably non-existent. Like the debuffs is permanently there, you don't really cleanse her debuffs, but by cleansing something, then you are able to heal your allies. And that's the only way you can heal your allies. So all these cleanser espers, Celine, Clara, Heng Ye, Jin Yuyao, Catherine, and Sally are able to heal their allies by just cleansing something. So for example, like Heng Ye, even though her third skill heal while also cleansing, it doesn't count as cleansing. So only her passives are able to work in here in order to heal her allies. So the first phase, you do want to lengthen that phase as much as possible using your AP controller here while dealing the damage using your tank here. And then afterwards, if she is able to get into her second phase, then her gameplay totally changes. She is only able to get damage from the 4th hit onwards. So the way she counts the hit is that, for example, like Xie Chuyi here, he used his third skill is able to hit 3 times, and after he used that skill, he will be followed up by the Xie Yuzi, and Xie Yuzi will use his third skill, which hits for another 2 times. So this still counts as within a single turn. So these 2 hits will count as the 4th and the 5th hit. So these 2 hits will be counted in dealing damage to the Countess Sonika. And also Esper that can follow up like Booster or Yunchuan is also count as the next hit that Esper makes in their turn. Like for example, if Xie Chui use his third skill, attacks enemy 3 times, and then follow up by Booster, then Booster's hit will be count as the 4th hit. So there are some Espers that are able to multi-hit by themselves. Like for example, Louis here, he hits 9 times, so the 4th arrow, 4th until the 9th arrow will be able to deal damage to the boss. And also like Esper like Tang Yun, also depends on your luck, he can hit more than 4 times, or he can only just hit 4 times, but all in all he is a multi-hit Esper. And also you can try to use Bai Liuli. She is also an Esper that can deal multi-hits, like she can hit not 5 times, but only if you actually build her. But she is a really good Esper to be used here because she is able to inflict sear on the boss. So you do want to just focus on dealing as much damage to her, but because she also deals damage to you whenever she moves, then you can try to reduce her damage by using his raid up, attack down, and then defense up to your allies. And then don't forget your attack up buffs, and then sear and defense down to the boss to be able to deal as much damage as possible. And then also speed up and speed down, also important. And your clans, especially your clans here. So that's how you deal with Countess Sonika. Like I don't really have a tips and tricks for her, but I just put all these Espers. Like if you do have a multi-hit Espers, just use them, and probably someone in the future will come up with pretty little tricks into dealing with her. Like probably with all these multi-hit Espers, there might come like a unique interaction that you can actually use in order to deal damage to the boss. So yeah, that's everything for the Sentinel hunt. So hope you guys got something new out of it, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.